All right, everybody. The Chargers just made a move that kind of it's one of these things that's on the cutting edge of what good NFL teams do, and it kind of outsmarts everybody else when you decide to take this area seriously. We're going to talk about what that is. We're going to talk about my new background. But before we do that, let's just remind you, if you're new to this channel, we're almost there. We're almost to 1,000. Who knows? By the time you're watching it, we might be there. We're trying to set a record of 14 days. Our previous high, we have a few different channels. We started with Sports Talk Detroit. You see the Hutch jersey back there. We love Harbaugh. You see a signed picture of Harbaugh right there. I got it. And so we followed him to the Chargers, and it is just a perfect fit because we understand what he's going to do and why he is the perfect coach and exactly what this franchise needed. And it's because of things like he did today, or at least recently, that tell you exactly why he gets it and what they're doing. So let's get to the news of what's happening here. The Chargers have hired 4 different people to the sports performance staff there in LA. All right, and this is a big deal, and I'm going to talk to you about why this is a big deal. And let me ask you this question. When you think over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, how's the health of the Chargers been overall? Because what I know about the Chargers is it feels like every year, and by the way, I've been here even with Detroit. All right, it feels like every year they have this roster. It's so good, and you're just wondering what it's going to look like by the end of the year because so many people are hurt on the roster. There are so many injuries over and over and over again. And I know like what a lot of people might be thinking, like, okay, so there's injuries. How do we fix that? I'm really glad you asked that question because you need to fix that on 2 parts. Actually, it's 3 parts. Number 1, your strength staff. Are bodies well conditioned? Are they well maintained and worked out in order to have success? Number 2, you need to have good preventative maintenance. In other words, are they doing unique things? Do they have unique off-season workouts during the week? What are they doing to keep their bodies stretched in a way that they will be forced to in the game? I remember the first time I ever heard about this. It was actually back in the 90s. It was Barry Sanders. He used to spend an hour every day contorting his body into weird positions so that if it happened on the football field, his body wouldn't be past its limit and it would be fine. You saw this on the Netflix show Quarterback. Patrick Mahomes has his own individual trainer. He goes, he works out, and their whole idea is to have him doing crazy movements and putting the body in weird positions so that it doesn't get hurt when it happens in the game. Well, the Chargers are now bringing in guys to do that. That's the second part of it. The third part of this is what is your physical therapy? What does your rehab look like? What kind of doctors do you have if an injury does happen to get the body back and ready? So let's read what they've done. They have announced the hirings of Executive Director of Player Performance, Ben Herbert, who came from Michigan. All right. Head Strength and Conditioning Coach, Devin Woodhouse, and Director of Performance Analytics and Performance Analyst, Lincoln DeWolf. That's one of the ones where it's just like, okay, this is interesting. This is what we need. Head Strength and Conditioning Coach, Jonathan Brooks, will continue in his role with the staff. So they're beefing up this staff. That's what they're doing. And they're taking a lot of the guys from Michigan with them. So I understand there's a difference between NCAA and NFL. I get that. But we're going to talk about what Michigan has seen in the last 6 years. All right. Woodhouse recently spent the 2023 season as Michigan as their assistant strength and conditioning coach. He served in the same role for University of Wisconsin the 2 seasons prior. Rabe worked the past 4 seasons on the strength and conditioning staff as an assistant at Michigan, and DeWolf recently worked as the associate director of performance analytics at Michigan. During the whole time Ben Herbert was there, injuries were pretty good for Michigan. But over the last 3 or 4 years, when DeWolf got hired, when Rabe started working there, the injuries have been almost non-existent. Michigan went from a team where there were all these injuries popping up in training camp. Like, we're not even on heavy contact here, right? Like, those soft tissue injuries, the hamstrings, the groins, the whatever that looks like all these injuries that were popping up. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, they stopped. And in those few years, Michigan made 3 trips to the National Football Playoff. Like, okay, that's good. Now let's go over to another team that did it. The Detroit Lions have been just like the Chargers with injuries. And they brought in some new strength stuff 2 years ago, and it got better during the season, but they still had all these preseason injuries just racking up like crazy. And then they overhauled their department. Whether it was strength and conditioning, whether it was physical therapy, whether it was performance analytics, whether all this kind of stuff, they overhauled their staff. And this was by far the healthiest year I can remember for Detroit Lions team since I've been watching. And I've been watching a really long time, since the early 90s. So it's one of those things. And no, that's not when I was born. That's when I was watching. All right. So there was just not a lot of injuries. And so now the Chargers are doing that. And that's why this is such an important move, because here's the truth. You're going to have to get rid of some talent because of the salary cap. You're going to draft a lot of new talent in the draft, but you need those guys to stay healthy. If you want to compete with the Chiefs, if you want to compete in your division, all right, you need to have a healthy roster going forward. And they are setting themselves up in position to have exactly that. All right. Hope you liked the video. Hope this makes sense to all of you. If you have, throw a comment on there. If you're enjoying the channel so far, we want to be your go-to spot for Chargers content. Give us a like, and I'll hold this up here long enough so we get a thumbs up. All right. Give us a like, and there it is. All right. And subscribe. We're almost to 1,000. So excited to be able to do this with all of you. Thanks.